Welcome to the Making Money Personal podcast. Today, Terry and Will discuss what it takes to run a successful business with local business expert and SCORE representative Rick Dassatti. If you are a business owner or thinking about opening your own business, we invite you to stay tuned.
You're listening to Triangle's Making Money Personal podcast, where we engage in real talk about financial matters that affect our community. Today's episode is sponsored by Triangle Credit Union, recently voted Best Credit Union in New Hampshire.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Terry Conley, along with my co-host Will Infante. Joining us in the studio is business expert and SCORE representative Rick Dassatti. Welcome to the studio, Rick.
Happy to be here.
So before we begin on the nuts and bolts of what it takes to run a successful business, can you give us some background about what SCORE is and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. SCORE is an organization that is a partner of the Small Business Administration, and we were put in place about 51 years ago, I believe, and we have approximately 300 offices nationally, and we assist about 32,000 clients a year. So It's been a real pleasure for me joining the company or the organization after retiring. I was in the high-tech field doing military subcontracting and so forth. So I came to SCORE. I really learned a lot about other areas of business that I learned through all the people that are with SCORE in our office. And I really enjoyed working with small businesses, helping them succeed. So a little bit about SCORE. We all use a very similar process. We try to listen to the client's needs, try to understand what business they're in, and sometimes they don't know what they don't know. So we try to extract from them what we need to do to help them. And normally the first meeting we have with a client is more or less a triage process. We really are looking for a long-term relationship with the client. So the first meeting is generally to understand how we might help them. And if we don't have the skill ourselves to help that client, we will reach out to some 50 members of our local chapter and bring in experts in the field that they really need. So every mentor comes from a different background, has different experience. The term SCORE was originally meant Service Corps of Retired Executives, but we really don't use that anymore. We have members of SCORE that were subject matter experts, such as a lawyer or maybe they were a banker, maybe they were an accountant. So we use those expertise to help our clients, and it usually works pretty well.
So how many chapters are in New Hampshire? Or is New Hampshire its own chapter?
No, there are. It's changing a little bit because some of the smaller chapters are being incorporated into the larger chapters. The two main chapters in New Hampshire are the Merrimack Valley chapter in Manchester and the Seacoast chapter in Portsmouth. Some of the smaller chapters were Keene, the Upper Valley, the Lakes region had a small chapter, but generally the two major ones are Manchester and Portsmouth.
Awesome.
Wow.
Great.
So let's talk about what you specifically do to help businesses succeed.
Well, like I said earlier, we get a client will come in through our website or by calling our office, and then there's a team of people that assign the client to a mentor, and that's done in a series of ways. It could be that the people that are signing the client believe that the client could be helped by a general management person, so they could be assigned to anybody, and sometimes just they find somebody that's kind of close to the person that needs the help. Other times the client will give more specific information about what they believe they need, and then the assignment team will try to line them up with a person with that background.
Is there a sort of process of like filling out a survey to identify what the needs are, or is it just a filling out a contact information point and then having somebody from SCORE call them back?
Well, the typical process is someone would either know about our website, go to our website, and simply request mentoring. And that could be face-to-face, it could be email mentoring, but generally that's how most of our clients come in, is through our website. They can also call our office, and there will be a mentor on duty at the office, and they will help the person fill out the application for help online, or just point them to it.
And is there a fee for any help that they receive?
No, there's no fee for any of our help.
Okay. So in terms of, certainly there are tactical aspects of starting your own business, but do you also help a new business with a strategic thinking, and, where they're going to be in 5 years, where they're going to be next year, things like that?
Well, Terry, I think what you're talking about is business planning. Well, I got to tell you, in my experience, I can't think of one client that really enjoys business planning. And the reason for that is it takes them out of their comfort zone. When you think about a person that's starting a business, they may be an expert at something. Let's say they're a landscape person. They know all about landscaping, but what they don't know is about all the other things that will make their business successful. So we try to help with the things that they don't know about. For example, we will help them with defining the structure, the type of structure they may want or need. We help them with resources, how to go about getting resources. We help them with market analysis and how to promote and sell your product, how to use digital marketing, how to understand their finances. So we tend to help fill in all the gaps that a typical business person starting a business just either wouldn't like or doesn't understand. And to make their business successful, they need to understand all those things a little bit.
Right. Excellent.
So what are some of the most important things necessary for like a successful business strategy, or to have a successful business in general?
Well, in my experience, again, it's not any one thing. The most important thing might be what they never thought of or don't understand or just don't like doing. So by knowing where to go for help might be the most important thing that a small business needs to know. And the use of SCORE mentors or our workshops can help fill those voids.
Right.
Do you have those workshops on your website, or are they listed there?
Yes. The website has the current offerings. So right now there's some websites taught by a very, very good social media expert that covers, there's 3 classes in Facebook advertising.
Excellent.
So there's an introduction to Facebook, there's an advanced Facebook, and then there's some of the for-fee Facebook processes. So those are held locally here. We've had them in Bedford, Manchester, Concord, Warner, and I'm bringing a new series of workshops to Hampstead.
Excellent.
They are all listed on our
Right.
website under the workshop tab.
Okay.
Excellent.
Great.
We'll definitely take a look at that. That's awesome. Great resource. Rick, what should a new business owner look for when they're launching their business? First steps.
That's kind of a tough question as well, because there's a lot of possible answers. The important thing that I try to get people to remember is that they're not a carpenter or a mechanic or a therapist anymore. They're a business owner. And they have to understand that what they're good at is not necessarily going to make them a successful business. So they have to learn about those other components of a successful business.
Right.
So, when you launch a business, I've had so many clients that left a company and they did a specific task in a company, and they really are expert in that, but they don't appreciate what their old company's management had to do to make it as successful as it was, that they have to now learn. So that's again, it's part of that business planning, and we help them through that.
Right. So it sounds like, you really need to recognize that what you bring to the table is a certain, passion for, like you said, if it's lawn care, if it's a lawn care service, you love to do, mow lawns and landscape and hardscapes and all that. But if you're not good at, keeping records
or marketing,
then maybe you should be looking at other resources or outsourcing those types of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of my clients was interviewed by a business magazine, and I didn't know it, but I read the magazine, and I knew he was talking about a session that we had, and he was asked what was the most important thing any of his advisors told him, and he said that, well, this guy told me to stop doing what I like doing and start doing what I need to do. And that's what I'm saying is people will start a business and they will just do what they know best, and they will likely have some trouble, or they won't grow as fast, or they will fail because they just don't know how to do the things that they need to do.
Right. I actually have a friend who started a business, and it was immobilizing for her because there was so much to do. She was taking on all of those responsibilities herself and not really even wanting to, right? So it's
focusing on her craft,
right?
On what
exactly.
she wanted to do.
So just knowing, that these things need to get done, but you don't have to do them yourself,
correct,
right? You can look for other resources,
right, and
outsource some of those things. So, do you help businesses determine their product market? Do you get into that type of thing with them?
We do, but often our clients know the market better than any of their SCORE mentors. Now, that's not to say they know how to reach it. That's a completely different subject, right? So we often point them to databases like A to Z that they can get through some of their larger libraries or market research materials that are available. We also help them with their social media and website content to better focus on their target. For example, I had a machine shop that had a lot of their business was with a large local prime contractor for the military, and they lost that contract, and it was probably 98% of their business. So very common problem, and it shouldn't happen. The prime contractor shouldn't allow that to happen, but they do. So this particular client had to kind of reinvent their business and do it quickly. So they created a web page before getting involved with SCORE, and their web page tended to draw people in that wanted a $5 part made for their antique car or something. And it was just the wrong market for that company because they had a lot of very expensive automated equipment meant for doing very precision work for, products like military products, for example. So we went in and changed their website to instead of showing pictures of a special fancy bolt that looks to most people like any kind of bolt, we got them to put pictures of, say, a Predator drone or a F-16 or an F-35 fighter jet. So it gave the impression to the reader that, I don't think they're going to want to build my $5 part. They're more in the military business, and that changed that attracted a different client to them and got them back on their feet again.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing. So we don't necessarily help them find their market. We help them maybe reach their market a little better.
That's outstanding. That's awesome.
Rick, we have more questions, but before we do that, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
Whether you currently own a small business or are thinking about launching one, at Triangle Credit Union, we have all the tools you need to help your business grow. We offer an array of deposit products and a variety of lending options, along with merchant and payroll services to simplify your finances. Recently awarded the SBA's 2019 Financial Services Champion of the Year for New Hampshire and New England, we can take your business to the next level. At Triangle Credit Union, serving our community is our business. Visit trianglecu.org for more information.
And we're back. So what are some goals that it's important for businesses to establish? Do you recommend that they do quarterly goals, yearly goals? How does that all play out?
I suppose every mentor has a slightly different take on this. I was a technology manager, and I had a lot of goals around that particular field. But as a small business owner, I tend to tell people that they need to, first of all, understand how to interpret their financials, and that their financials are not just to have their accountant do their taxes at the end of the year. Their financials are something that they need to review every month and try to understand, if business is down, what might have caused it? If their expenses are up, what caused it? If their, gross margins are down or their net margins are down, what might have caused that, and try to fix it. So I tend to give people goals like develop a cash flow analysis, a pro forma cash flow analysis that they look at and they say, geez, I expected to sell twice as many widgets, last month as I did. Was I too aggressive on my projections, or was something that I need to change in the product or service or the market changed, or, why is that? So I tend to give people the advice to do financial goals, and then everything else sort of falls under that.
So, and that's the thing about financials, right? It's truly measurable. Sometimes, you just need to have that very quantitative measurement to see how successful you are.
Exactly.
Right.
Rick, can you provide or tell us a really good story in terms of some of the things that you've been proud of, where you've helped mentor a specific business that really stands out to you?
Well, I have about 60 active clients, so I'd like to think that I help all of them, but probably
we'll have
not.
to get them in here.
Yeah, right.
Geez, there's a lot of different stories. Most recently, I helped an auto repair business get a loan to build a new building and make quite a large expansion of their business. And for that, we used a new process that I helped develop, or I did develop at SCORE, that prepares businesses for their loan application. So instead of just helping them put a business plan together, it has them fill out all the SBA documents that will be required, the personal finance statements, there's about 26 items that I have them put together. And so when they go to a bank, and we'll go with them if they wish, they have everything that the bank would typically ask for, but not generally at the first meeting. They get, I got to remember, I'm at a credit union.
That's okay. That's all right. We do SBA loans here. So.
I don't want to say what you usually do to them, but
in another credit union is what you're suggesting. I get you.
Must be the one down the street.
That's
right. Absolutely. No, that particular business provided the bank with this package of information, and while it doesn't help the business understand what that bank's rules are. It just says you've got to provide the bank with a cash flow analysis to show that you can pay the loan back, or you've got to show them that you were never a felon, or whatever.
Right.
You have to give them all this information. Whether I'm not going to be able to tell them what their cash flow has to be, or what their I can't tell them what the bank's acceptance criteria is, but I can prepare them to provide the information that bank will use to determine that.
Right. And how pivotal is that? Because once you're giving them a heads up, right, in terms of these are all of the information that you're going to have to be prepared to present. So it doesn't waste their time, and it doesn't waste, the financial institution's time, right? So you're making it so much more efficient.
Exactly, and it's a two-part process. We get the client's mentor to fill out or to provide all this information, put it in a package, and I call it a loan application package. And then the second step of that is we would bring in one of our financial experts within SCORE, and I have a 3-person team that will review that as if they were the lender, and then point out to them, okay, you have a fairly bad credit score. What you're going to be asked about that? What caused that to be? Do you have an explanation for that credit score, or you have 3 years of tax returns that showed 1 year where you didn't make a lot of money. Can you explain that? Did you make a big investment in a company or whatever that it doesn't show up here, and that's the reason why your profitability, your income was down that year. So we go through that package of information and try to determine what is it that would make a bank nervous, and then make sure that you understand
Cover your bases.
What you need to explain about that, if there is an explanation.
How long is a typical process that you work with a client?
Well, initial meetings usually take about an hour and a half, and from that we have a pretty good idea what they're trying to do. And now, in case of an in-business client, the process that we talked about earlier, this Compass program that we have in our chapter, those meetings can go several hours, and we'll bring more than one person to the meeting. And we usually meet at the businesses, at the business itself rather than in one of our offices, because we if they're in business, we really want to see the whole business. If it's a factory, we want to see it operating. Yeah. So those, like I said, those meetings can take several hours, and then we usually will suggest something for the client to do, and suggest that we meet back with them, and whatever works for them. Sometimes they want to be pushed. Sometimes they want to take their time, and it doesn't matter to us. It's their business, but we suggest another meeting time where we'll go over the items that we talked about and suggestions that we've made.
Right. For the example that you shared about the I believe it was an auto dealership, or no, an auto repair shop. Are you still working with them, or is that after like a year, like you give, a new business, like, okay, this is like a 6-month time period or a 12-month time period, and then you let them
No, most of our relationships are long-term, or we want them to be, because a business needs will change. That business started out with a much different set of needs than the opening of the new facility and building the new building. So we want to be there for the life of their business, and we will meet with them sometimes several times in the course of a month, and then we might not hear from them for a year. But we'll always check back in with them, or we'll often check back in with them if we haven't heard from them for a while, and see where they're at. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Terry, but it's a long-term thing.
Right. Excellent.
So, Rick, one question that I just thought of, what's in it for SCORE? How does SCORE benefit from helping these businesses in New Hampshire and all over the country?
Well, I mean, SCORE is a nonprofit organization. It's all volunteer, so there is no charge for the services. Yeah. It keeps us busy. Yeah. And, most of us just enjoy helping people and helping them succeed. So SCORE, gets a tiny bit of funding from the SBA, to keep our office open in Manchester, for example. Yeah. But we also raise some money through donations and sponsorships and stuff from various accounting firms and law firms and some financial institutions. And in turn, we hope that we can help the community businesses grow and hire people and provide jobs and all that. So, I mean, that's kind of
Well, it sounds like you
goal.
guys are doing a great job at that. I mean, I think a lot of people want to start businesses, and one of the things that holds them back from it is wishing that they could talk to somebody and having somebody in their corner to kind of guide them through the process. And I'm glad SCORE is around for that purpose. So
Right. Well, I mean, we've had conversations, Will, about, in previous episodes that my daughter and I are starting a business together. And, where we're going to be advertising is completely digital.
right,
And, she's fresh out of high school, and, she uses social media, but she's never actually done the digital marketing aspect. So I am completely stoked about looking on your Facebook page or on your website, Rick, about, how to those workshops that you were talking about for digital marketing and things like that. So can you just, I just wanted to go back to some of the workshops that you are providing. So it's digital marketing. Are there other workshops that you can think of off the top of your head?
Sure. There's financial workshops, understanding startup costs and expenses, and some of the typical forms, cash flow analysis, asset management, all that kind of stuff. We talked about social media marketing, business planning, where we've been holding workshops on a process called business model canvas. It's a very popular approach to doing a business plan on a single sheet of paper. So we have a workshop on this popular new business planning methodology. We have a professor out of Merrimack, I believe, that is a college instructor for QuickBooks. So we have a very intense QuickBooks training. I think it's a 9-hour instruction. There's a lot of business owners that their QuickBooks has been set up by their accountant for the ease of the accountant, and we want them to make sure they understand how to do their chart of account setup so that it's helpful for them to operate their business. So I think this class is very good for that. But these are what we're offering right now, and there's other classes that we hold from time to time. But if we notice that these classes are filling up, we hold them usually on a weeknight and again on a Saturday morning. If the classes that are always full, we'll put more of those classes out there.
right.
So it's sort of what the market is looking for is what we'll run workshops on.
Terrific.
Are the classes open to anybody, or do they have to be a client?
No,
SCORE?
they are open to anybody, and in fact, we hold a lot of these at public libraries, and usually public libraries require that you can't charge for a workshop in a library,
Right.
and B, it has to be open to the public. So,
Fair.
but it wouldn't matter. We would do that anyway.
Right.
Now, when people take these workshops, there's a vast majority of them sign up for some mentoring. So
Right.
we do get some clients that sign up because of the workshops.
Awesome.
So when it comes to business lending, when do you think a company is ready to take out a loan, and what are their options?
Well, there's a lot of options. There's loans like the SBA 504 loans, which rely on some current infrastructure, like a building that they own, to meet the 10% down requirement that they may need for that loan. There's 7A loans, there's personal loans, there's lines of credit. So there's a lot of options out there. What SCORE mentors can bring to the table is that we have relationships with banks, credit unions, certified development corporations, as well as the SBA, and that we can help the client prepare for that first meeting with the financial institution, and even go with you if they like. We have relationships with about 22 bank commercial loan executives, and we've created some fairly comprehensive checklists of what might be needed to go to an institution for a loan.
Right.
So we'd love to help with that, and that's one of the things that I think we can bring a lot to the table on.
Excellent.
Perfect. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. But before we go, Rick, where can people get in touch with SCORE? Do you guys have a social media presence, or is it just through your website? And
both. There's actually 3 ways. You can call our office at SCORE You'll find the Manchester chapter in there. The phone number there is 603-666-7561. You can also go to our website and complete a mentor request section on our website, and the mentor will contact you usually within 48 hours. Or you can just walk in to our 275 Chestnut Street location at the Federal Building in Manchester.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rick.
Yeah,
This
you're
has
welcome.
it's been an incredible just opportunity to think about,
Pick his brain.
what is our next step, and so I really appreciate it.
I look forward to helping you and your daughter's business.
Excellent. Terrific. Have a new
Awesome.
resource.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on this episode of the Making Money Personal podcast. I encourage you to like us on Facebook, the Triangle Credit Union page on there. If you can, please rate and review our podcast on iTunes. That would be a tremendous help. Also, if you can share it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you have, we'll take it. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. Have a great day.